Thanks for tuning in. This is Stomper Be Thompin', and in this video I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the modifications I've done to this 2023 KTM 350 XCF in order to get it ready for Hare Scramble racing and trail riding in the Mid-Atlantic region. So the first thing I did was install Tubeless front and rear. Now I know not everybody's a big fan of Tubeless. No system is going to be perfect except for maybe Moose's, but even then you can't really change your PSI. I like that you can change your PSI before a race based on the conditions pretty quickly and easily. It's not cheap and it can be a little bit troublesome to install your first try, but this was my second time installing it. Very simple, pretty reliable system that allows you to change up your PSI for any kind of traction that you're after. So next I wanted to get a little bit of protection for the lower parts of the bike, like the rotors, the chain, and the front forks. So in the rear, I went with a shark fin style rear rotor guard by Bulletproof Designs. They also have this rear caliper metal guard here. I chose painted black. They've got like orange, blue, and a couple other colors. These are pretty stout. Those can take a hit pretty hard and keep your rotors nice and straight. On the other side, I have a combination of a Bulletproof Designs mounting system with the TM Designs chain guide. There's a little plastic piece in here that is replaceable via these two bolts. So that's a wear item. Once that wears out, you just replace it and keep going. The stock version of the chain guide is actually pretty decent, but I just know that this system's pretty reliable and it wasn't too much of a pain to install. And on the front hand side, I took this Enduro Engineering rotor guard off my KTM 300 XCW that I have, and it bolted right up no problem in two locations. This just kind of helps provide a little bit of extra protection around here for your caliper and for your rotor, of course, and for your axle nut. And on the opposite side, just to give the fork bottom here a little bit of extra protection, I have this plastic mount from a Chirby's, again, just for kind of some of the harder scrapes and stuff. So these KTMs do come stock with some pretty stout plastic radiator guards, and those should do the trick for most trail riding, but I went ahead with these Tusk billet aluminum radiator guards. They're affordable, they're very simple to bolt on, and they're strong enough to do the job, but there's plenty of options out there for radiator guards. So to help keep the bike cool, I wanted to install a fan, and I don't believe that KTM has a KTM branded fan that like plugs right into the ECU like on my 300 two-stroke that I have. That was a pretty simple setup. Buy the fan, bolt it on, plug it in, you're good to go. It uses the onboard thermostat. So in this case, I had to go and get a kit. Now Tusk through Rocky Mountain does have a kit. It's a basic fan. I think it pulls about 15 watts when it's running. It is programmed to come on at 190 degrees. So it's just a simple bolt onto the radiator. You just pop the gas tank off, drain the coolant, or where is it? Down here. You just drain the coolant, unhook the radiator from the hoses, bolt the fan on. Now, recommendation, you're gonna have to bolt it on in the lowest possible position, which is gonna be very obvious. Tusk's instructions have a lot of pictures and they're very clear and easy to follow, so just follow along with that. The only problem is you have two mounting bolts for the fan to the fan bracket. So the fan mounts to the fan bracket, and the fan bracket then mounts to your radiator via these little screws. So this silver bolt here connecting the fan to the bracket, there's an identical one on the opposite corner, up and in. Now I could not get the tank to sit down properly and clear this bolt. So I took this bolt out from this upper inside corner and I just used a zip tie. That's holding nice and strong. So the instructions are pretty clear about that too. They advise you to check for clearance before you do any final bolting down and any refilling of the coolant and stuff. Now for the temperature little sensor tab here, this is just a simple little wired tab, and it's going to be really difficult to see in there. It's just, you just push it into the fins with a little bit of this high temp grease, but you'll see I have a little piece of safety wire on there. That was per recommendation from the instructions, and initially I did have this wired up without the safety wire, and I went for just a quick little break-in trail ride, and that tab sure enough fell out and was just dangling there. So definitely recommend just doing the safety wire. But beyond that, it's very simple. You route it up to your gas tank, You wire it up. I chose to mount my little reader here right on the frame. It does come with some 3M tape, but that's not really strong enough. It was starting to fall off, so I did use a little bit of super glue, and she's holding strong. So this is cool. You can kind of set whatever temperature you want. It comes preset at 190. I noticed that the fan kicks on, and it very quickly brings it from 190 down to about 185 before the fan finally turns off. But I did notice that after the race, I went and parked, and it had a hard time sitting there at idle, bringing it down to 185. So it's not a perfect solution to overheating, but it absolutely will help quite a bit. So this here is some footage of the stock skid plate. So these things do come with a skid plate stock, and it's not terribly bad either. It's actually decent thickness and strength, but it is just a small, thin piece of plastic. You get decent side coverage, and there is you got little four mounting bolts, 2 in the front, 2 in the rear on the bottom, and there is a little slot underneath to allow for a linkage guard to slip in and bolt on. But I did decide to put on a beefier, larger aftermarket skid plate, specifically because this one has linkage. So this one's made by Tusk. It is eerily similar to the AXP plastic skid plate that I've got on my 300 XCW. It looks like they essentially just copied kind of what they do. But Tusk is first to market with an aftermarket skid plate for these 2023 KTM XCF models, at least that I'm aware of. So this is a pretty basic design. It's the HDPE plastic. You do have a mounting bracket in the front. That's very easy to mount. That will stay connected to the bike, and then it bolts up with a single bolt in the front, then 2 bolts on the side. It was a little bit difficult to get these 2 side bolts to mount up because it just wants to kind of push off the bottom of the bike a little bit, but once you get it on there, I've read on the forums that it will kind of help form to the bike, and it'll be a lot easier. You do have to take it on and off for oil changes, but you get a decent amount of protection. It has a built-in linkage guard, which obviously the stock plate did not, and it comes with these little foam inserts to help keep things quiet on the linkage, but you do have some extra side protection up here. This kind of pushes in real easy up against your coolant, so I don't love that, but it is a little bit of extra protection. And here's the other side. You got a single wing up here, which is decently strong. That's some nice protection on the sides underneath. Handguards. There's a million good ones out there. This is my first time ever trying these Cycra Pro Bend handguards. I've had the Acerbis, I've had some Reflex ones. Both of those were pretty good. I liked them. But I think I like these better. I think they are by far not the coolest looking. They kind of have like a little bit of a retro vibe, but you know, whatever. But yeah, they're pretty strong and pretty stout. I chose the ones that kind of mount up here right next to your handlebar clamps. Show you a better angle of it here in the sun. So these mount up pretty stout, and they give you a few different options in case you cut your bars and you go a little bit smaller. I do have it on the widest setting, but these bars are stock width. But I'm happy with these so far. They've definitely smacked a couple trees so far, and they've held up just fine. So very happy with the Cycras at this part. One issue is that your bar pad that your bike comes with will not really fit anymore. So I just kind of took a box cutter and I kind of sliced a little chunk off here on each side, so it sits on these bar mounts now a little bit tighter, and you can kind of still keep, this is the rubber mount from a 2022, but you just cut your bar pad up a little bit and it allows you to kind of still have it on the bike. So I have yet to upgrade the stock grips, but here is some footage of the ODI Rogue version 2 MX lock-on grips. So KTM, they all come with these MX style lock-on grips now. I think they're like a half waffles. And for the first, so I've had this bike for 2 races now, and for these first 2 races, I've gotten small blisters on my hands where I normally never ever do. So I think I'm gonna order a set of those Rogue grips, just kind of go back to that big old squishy grip again and see if the blister issue goes away. But I'm a big fan of ODI's grips so far, so I'll keep ordering them. I am still rocking the stock tires on this bike. It comes with a pretty decent set. So on the rear, you've got a tried and true Dunlop Geomax AT81. Now, some people love these, some people don't really care for them. After talking to a lot of people, and this is now my third tire, they appear to be like just a pretty good all-around woods tire. So I am gonna use that one up. I've only got maybe 4 or 5 hours on it, but the big change is in the front. So KTM used to offer their woods bikes with the Dunlop AT81 front tire, and fewer people are fans of that over the rear AT81. So for this year, they put on the Dunlop Geomax MX33. Now my brother's YZ250FX came with this tire, and I quickly became a fan of it at that point after riding his bike a couple times. I do have some experience with the Bridgestone M59 as well, and that was a great tire, but I really like this MX33. I think this is my new personal favorite front tire. I do have a Tusk MX-T35 soft terrain for the rear once this sucker wears out, so I'm actually really excited to try that Tusk tire. We'll see how that does. I'm also still rocking the stock exhaust. As far as I can tell, there's only one kind of slip-on that's available by Pro Circuit, and man, these 4-stroke pipes are expensive. That one does come spark arrested, the stock bikes do not. So as you can gather from this video, this is a brand new generation bike, so the aftermarket is still playing a lot of catch up. So there's a couple things that I would maybe like to consider getting that just are not available yet. For example, the skid plate. Tusk just came out with this skid plate. From what I can tell, I check Rocky Mountain and some other sites like a couple times a week to see what parts are coming out for these, and that Pro Circuit pipe just hit the market. But I am interested in getting maybe some plastic engine guards. I have those on my 300 2-stroke, and I'm a fan of them. They just offer you just a little bit more protection for your cases and your clutch cover and everything, just in case you do kind of lay it down hard in a rock garden or something. You know, maybe it'll save it. They're cheap, they're thin, they don't really add much weight to the bike, and they don't really get in your way either. So it's kind of a teeny tiny little insurance plan that I'll probably try out here in the future. So I'm still also running the stock clutch. I'm not gonna put a Recluse of any kind on here. I'm not really a Recluse fan, but I absolutely do not dislike them at all. A lot of people like them, a lot of people love them, and talking to people at these races, it's made some people a lot faster. So they're turning in much better lap times with these Recluse clutches, and I know they come in different varieties, but I just don't think it's for me. Maybe in the future, I am absolutely willing to possibly try one out in the future, but I'm still a beginner. I still got so much learning to do with this clutch. I like working my way through gnarly, just kind of rocky sections with the clutch and these hill climbs and stuff. I enjoy it. Yeah, you flame out, but hey, that's part of the game. It makes you a better rider. So maybe there's a Recluse in my future, but for now, I got some more learning to do on the old clutch. And the last thing, holy shnikes, that sun is bright. The last thing I did was put on a set of number plate graphics from Attack Graphics. That's Rocky Mountain's in-house brand. I know I sound like a Rocky Mountain fanboy, but they got good stuff at good prices. So I just went with a pretty basic setup, and I put my number on there in purple just to match the little front flare there. But yeah, that's it. That's basically how I like to set my bikes up for woods racing and trail riding, and kind of hare scrambles on the East Coast at least. Thanks for watching.